Good evening, YouTube. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Mogens Skjolt about his time as a teenager in the Danish resistance against the Nazis. It really is an amazing story, and of all the videos I've done, it's the one of which I'm most proud. I originally uploaded it a couple of years ago, but I had to split it into parts as I could only upload 10-minute videos at the time. As I can now upload it as a single video, and as my channel is a bit better known, I thought I'd re-upload it. I'm delighted to be joined by Mogens Skjolt on the Land and Coal on YouTube. Mogens, thanks for taking the time.
It's a pleasure.
How old were you when you joined the resistance in Denmark?
I was 16, it was in 1944, in the spring. I was a Boy Scout, and there was one of the leaders that contacted me and said, I have a meeting with you if you would like to come. I said, of course. And we had this thing going on during the war that the scouts could apply for an air raid shelter, a public one, and to come and open it and stay there while there was an air raid going on. So I had one, and I had to get up in the middle of the night and go over there. But then after a period we found out that the aircrafts, they just passed us, when going down to Germany and coming back again. So one night he came in, he lived very close to it, he came into this air raid shelter and we talked for a while, and he said to me, well, we have known each other now for 4 years, and I will ask you if you could imagine to do something for the resistance movement. He said, of course, if I can. And he said to me, it has nothing to do with arms or explosives, but it's a very important job you have to do. I said, but what is it? He said, I won't tell you until I call you one day. I'll call you the day before, and then we can meet in this air raid shelter. You have the key, and we can talk here without being disturbed. So I think a long time passed. This was in May. And then he called me on the 18th of September 1944 and said, can you come tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the air raid shelter? I said, of course I can. And I came there at 3 o'clock, and it was not the best day because the German took the police that day, the Danish police. So there was a hullabaloo all over the town, and policemen being transported to jail and to ships to be taken to Germany and so on. But he said, well, it's not a good day, but it's important that the things are done. And so he gave me a bicycle. So I said, now, what's it all about? And said, in the bicycle pump there is a piece of paper with a message. And you're not allowed to open it or do anything about it, but it's inside there, and it's important that it is delivered to the place that I say to you every time, exactly, on the hour, and to the right man. And in order to find out if it is the right man, you will have to, he will ask you, can I borrow your bicycle pump? And then he will say, if it is Danish word, and you have to say, then it's 2 times Danish word because I have bicycled it out here.
Right.
And he will say again, then it is 3 times Danish word when I use it.
Right.
That was just to be sure that this was the right person, because normal people wouldn't exchange remarks.
So the code words were arranged in advance?
Yes. So he told me, and he said, you have to be 5 minutes 25 minutes past 4. You have to be in front of a church in the outskirts of Aarhus. It was about 10-15 kilometers. And at the entrance to the churchyard, you just stand there. And so I bicycled to the town, and of course the Germans had blocked the road.
Yeah.
So when I came out of town, I could see there was something in the distance of a kilometer. There was some barbed wire and so on, and there was a German standing in front with a machine gun, and 2 of them in the field were lying down. So I was actually a little afraid, I must say. So I stepped down from the bicycle and I walked up to this blockade, or what you would call it, and I could see the German that was standing in front with his machine gun. He was looking at me at first, but then I was not an interesting thing. So he looked away. So I said, okay. And I passed in there with my bicycle and said hello, and then I walked again 25 meters. You know, you have a feeling you'll be shot in the back. But then I stepped on my bicycle again. I came to the entrance to this churchyard, and to have an alibi, I went in and found a grave with the name Skjolt, because that was my mother's family.
Right.
So I could say I went out to see the grave, to visit their grave. I went out to the entrance, and the man came, tall one on bicycle, and he said, "Could I borrow your bicycle pump if it's Danish work?" So I said what I should say, and he said what he was going to say. And I delivered the pump to him, and I got his pump and was asked to just put it down in the air shelter and then close it off. So I bicycled home, put it in the air shelter, and went home and sat down, you know, thinking about all that stuff. Yeah. Because you were very exciting, the whole tour. And he had instructed me also and said, when you're on a bicycle and you have to turn, you have to put up your hand and look back. This is an advantage on the bicycle. You can see if there's somebody after you. And if there's somebody after you, you can do 2 things. You can just turn around the corner, take the bicycle pump and throw it over a hedge.
Right.
Go back and pick it up and go on. Or if it's very dangerous, you can step down and use it. And when you use it, you press the document
and it's destroyed.
Yeah. So this is a good thing. Then we have a problem, but then you contact me as fast as you can, and then we'll try to do it tomorrow. We have a replica of the document. And I did that 9 times from September until February 1945. And then I had to go in for an examination, you know, to pass an examination.
This was just in high school?
Yeah, yeah. And so I was not until the 5th of May in the morning, early in the morning, you know, we were liberated, the 4th of May 1945. Then in the morning of the 5th, 7 o'clock, my father came in and said, "There's a telephone for you. What's going on?" It's in the morning early. Yeah. From the town hall. What is it? So I said, "I don't know. I haven't answered it."
So you were 17.
Yeah.
And
17.
And in the early morning, the day after liberation, you get a call from the town hall.
Yeah. And I took the telephone, and I was told to be there immediately, as fast as possible, in the town hall, at the entrance to the town hall. So I addressed, and I went down there, and was shown down in the basement, and we walked. There was a little ladder underneath the town hall itself, and I walked up, and there was a door in the wall, and we came in, and there was a room that was not very high to the ceiling and so on, and there was some people there in uniform standing in there. And there were small boxes with telephones all around so they could call out. And in the next room there was a room where they could sleep.
Right.
And this was a place they had to get information about what happened in the different parts of Denmark when the German would surrender, and if there were any problems. And these messages were written down, and I had to bring them over to the Hotel Ritz. They said that it was 500 meters away.
Right.
So I came over to Hotel Ritz, and there in the big chairs in the hall, they said some people in coats with a hand in the pocket. You could see they had a heavy pistol in them. And just up behind the elevator there was a man standing with a machine gun.
So this was a Danish man?
Yeah, a Danish man, yes. So I said, what is this? Then he said, the hotel has been turned into the headquarters of the Jutland resistance movement now. They come to town and take the hotel. So you go to the first floor. So I went up there and into one of the rooms, and there I met a Danish captain, Captain Helk, he was called. And he said, I'm in charge here, and I give you, you had such
an armband.
An armband, yes, with colors on and everything. And a little card, identification card, saying that I belong to the resistance movement and I should have access and so on to every place, and assistance and so on.
Right.
Written by him, and said, now you are officially employed here. And then I was doing this here to different places in town, and when the English came on the 8th of May, also from this hotel to the English and so on, with all kinds of information that they need to have. So it was an exciting time, and at the same time I was studying Latin, I remember, because I had to pass an examination in Latin to join the Danish gymnasium. So, and when one day, this is also interesting, I came up to Captain Helk. There was a tall man standing in the corner, and Helk introduced him to me and said, this is a man who's just come back from the concentration camp. He's a Danish author and so on. And I went over and said hello and welcome back. And he thanked very much for that. So. And this was a person that I met many times since. He was actually a communist in the 20s, but now he has changed his mind.
Yep.
And became a very famous author later. I had contact with him. So the summer passed, and interesting is that my brother, my big brother, was also in the resistance movement. And we slept in the same room. Actually, he was above and I slept below. And we didn't know anything about the commitment we had.
So you didn't know that each other were in the resistance?
Nothing at all. Not until the evening of the 4th of May, when my father had a bottle of good wine in the cellar, so he went down and got it up. And we parted the glass of wine with another family. I'll bring that subject up a little bit later. And then my brother said, I have to leave now because I'm in the resistance movement. I should meet in the electric works down there at the harbor. And my father said, what's going on? You know, what are you doing? So, but then my brother left. We had another family living there. Father and mother, and a boy who was also a Boy Scout in the same part as I, and his sister. And why were they there? The 25th of April 1945, my father was called by telephone from the resistance movement and was told to leave, to go underground, because they had got information that he was now an object for the Gestapo to be shot. Because when something happened to the German sabotage or something, they will shoot a Danish person. and he was a well-known architect, and there had been a lot that had been shot in the streets or when they came out in the morning to go to the office and so on. So we discussed that. He was quite pale when he came. So he said, well, I'll call our friends living in a villa about a kilometer from us if we can stay there. And they said immediately, yes, of course you can stay as long as you like. So next afternoon we came there. My brother was not there because later he told me, I went to have some instruction in shooting and using arms and explosives and so that night. So we came there, we had our supper, and we heard the wireless from England, and now it could not last long until the war was over. And so I went upstairs with the son, and we sat in his room and talked about different things. My mother and father and the couple below, they went in to play cards and so. And I can't describe it because I don't think nobody can describe it, but about 10:30, something happened that Jørgen was sitting in front of the window. I was sitting on, on the second floor. You have the roof here behind you. The window was there. And then suddenly the window blew in and Jørgen fell on the floor, and I felt also pressure. You can't hear anything because you're deaf for some time. But when I turned my head and looked out, there was no roof behind me. And we looked out both. When he came up, he had some glass splinters in his face. We looked out, and the house beside was in 2 floors, but totally collapsed,
Right.
and burning a little bit. So we ran out, and the sister came crying in her pajamas and walking on glass, and all the glass had been thrown into the house. And we went downstairs, and our parents has been sitting actually only 15 meters from the bomb the Germans had placed there.
And that was to kill your father?
No, not to kill my father, but kill the family.
Not to kill the family?
Yes, so it was not us.
Yeah.
And they were bleeding all over. But Jørgen, my friend, he was studying medicine, so we went in the kitchen, had towels and everything, and sent them to hospital in a taxi we could call. And then Jørgen and I, we went across and said there were 2 people taking away bricks and so on. We said, what has happened is you help us and so on. We can tell you when we work. And this was a Dane, a professor. He was a professor in German.
Right.
And had written something against the Germans, so he had been underground for half a year.
Right.
And it was the first day that he had come home again to his family. And the Germans had found out, so they came there and they placed 40 kilo of explosives. That's horrible. And the house came down like that, from the front. And his wife and daughter was standing on the first floor on the bathroom floor, which is rather thick, And they sailed down like an elevator, and they stood on the bathroom floor in the grass, unharmed. And she came over to some neighbors, but she said to the people coming to help, my husband and the newborn child is lying down there in the ruins.
Trapped under the rubble.
Yeah. So that's why we are taking the rebels away. So we took the rebels. We were 4, the son of an accountant living on the other side of the road, Jørgen and I, and the father. And suddenly the son says, I can see a hand moving, it's a white hand moving with the chalks on it and so on. And we could see the bed. And then 2 people could get the end of the bed down to break it, and we could get him out. And out came the professor there in such a white nightshirt. And unharmed, he had a few scratches, but he was
unharmed.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. And then he said, the newborn is just here back in front of my bed. Down again. And the son was lying there, and I had his feet, and his father had my feet. he could crawl in, and he said, "I got him." And then he came out with a dune, and he was lying, sleeping.
Hadn't even woken up.
No, he was sleeping. Then he came out to his mother as fast as possible, to the daughter. And the father we had taken to hospital on a false name, and with an appendicitis that he didn't know about himself. But so when our parents came back and the sister of my friend came back, we looked at the house. Nobody could stay in that house. It was completely destroyed. And just to give you an impression of how hard it is, they had a lot of mahogany furniture, and it was ice on the surface of glasses that had been hammered into it. It was sparkling like ice, and you couldn't get it out with your nails. So we looked at that, and then my father said, "Okay, we have to go back to our house." We had 4 rooms empty on top of our flats here, where they were actually made for maidens to stay there if you had one, but they were empty. So they stayed there until the end of the war also. So that was why we were together, so many people that night. And my brother left first, and then Jørgen says, "I have to leave too, because I'm in the B groups." In the B group, that was some groups, rather many, who were trained when the war was over, or if the English should invade Denmark, they should come out. I think there were about 20,000.
Right.
But the resistance movement consisted only of about 3,000, 4,000 people that are active ones. So this was the story about the occupation. And then I didn't know exactly what I had been doing, of course. What is that bicycle stuff?
Yeah, just a bicycle pump.
So I was so lucky. So when I came to the gymnasium and started in August, my teacher was one who had been in the board of the Jutland Resistant Board.
Right.
He was a lecturer in Danish and German. So we had him in German, and after a while, of course, it was just after the war, we asked him about what he could tell about it, and about all this behind the stage. And then I said also to him, "Now can you explain, you said in that board, what was all that bicycle fuss about?" Bicycle pump fuss. So he said that was very important, because we had to get all the messages from London by radio. And the radio people were in Aarhus, because you cannot have them in the countryside. It's very easy for the Germans to find out where they are. But in the town, are they up and down, and where are they? So you have 8 minutes to receive or send, and then disappear.
Right.
So the messages from London had to be brought out to the headquarters. It was about 18 kilometers from Aarhus, in an old farm. There was General Benninge. He was in charge of the resistance movement's Jutland command, and had Captain Helk,
Yes, Captain Helk.
He was there, and the policeman and his wife. There were only these few people there in the farm. We had to get this message, had it decoded, took it out of the bicycle, had it decoded, had to speculate what to answer and so on, and then answer and code again, put it into the bicycle pump, and send in to meet again, to be courier. Yes, because I was not to know where the farmhouse was.
Right.
There was a man in between always, and it was never the same place. Sometimes it was an old station, sometimes it was another church, sometimes it was a crossing of the road, and so you had to find new places also.
Every time.
So I thanked them very much, because I didn't know exactly what this bicycle pump meant.
Did you ever find out what the messages were?
No. I had an idea. The one I brought out there in the 19th of September, it could have been that they said they agreed that the the RAF should bomb the university buildings where the Gestapo had their headquarters in Aarhus.
Right.
Because that's an interval. That it was the 31st of October it was bombed. So this was 19th of September. Anyway, they were talking about that.
Right.
And they could have green light. I know that in England they had built a model of it, so and discussing with the pilots how to attack it, come low up there. We have a ring road around Aarhus, which is light grey, easy to follow.
Yeah.
So if you follow the railway and you come in and see a bridge, then you have to follow the ring road up, and there is the yellow bricked university buildings to bomb. And it was a great success, you know.
Yeah.
All the Gestapos were killed. All the papers were blown up to different areas. I'll come back to that. And 2 persons were saved. There was a priest who was taken and interrogated by them, and there was a woman that I met later on. And they came out unharmed out of the ruins, and they could go to Copenhagen again. And the priest, we made a death advertisement in the papers. He died, and so he was away. He had gone. But back to the papers that blew up. After the war, I think a few years after the war, a man came up to my lecture in German and said, I found out it must be you here. And this was a card that Gestapo had made for the cartothek.
Yeah.
And it was burned a little bit in the yes. But there he could read about himself, his name and his age and everything. And there was also describing him. He looks like an attorney, they said. And that was correct. He was always hard, tall he was, with spectacles, and had a map in his hand. So he looks like an attorney, and he's so and so tall. And he has lived in Finsenskade, number so and so. But then he moved to Klintegård, number so and so, and we expect that he lives in Kilegård now. That was in the south of the town.
Right.
So they were right at his heels, you know.
So they were following him.
Yeah, and then they blew up the whole thing, and then
Yeah.
maybe he was saved. But he had it framed and it hanged in his house for many years ago, his Gestapo thing. So this is all the things about the war and so on. And the funny thing is that when autumn came, we started again now, on the Danes now. This was this. The blacks have lost the war, the white have won the war, so let's go on and rebuild the society and have education and so on. And we didn't speak about it. That's rather fantastic. We didn't speak about it.
Just got on with it.
No. It was done. And it's only 10 years ago that my brother and I sat down one day and I said to him, did you actually go there in the evening of the 4th? Well, I went down to the electric works and so on, and we were instructed to establish an interrogation center in the middle of the town to go and pick up all the people who had worked for the Germans and who had been hippos, you know.
Collaborators.
Yeah, collaborators. It means Hilfspolizei.
Yeah.
Help policemen. And had done a lot of bad things to the Danes, exploded houses and villas and theaters and newspaper printing buildings and all that. They had done that in the war. And then we established that near the cathedral and so on, and it worked for so and so many days. And we went out to get the people, and the people that we interrogated just not very deep, but then we took them in a little place to isolate them, and it was in a gymnasium hall where they had gymnastics.
Right.
They put barbed wire around, and there were several hundred there. And it was my gymnasium that I joined in August. And then he told a lot about all that. And I told him also, yes, I was in the morning, on the 5th of May, when you in the night were doing all that. I came to the town hall, and I was ordered to go down to bring a paper, not exactly to this center there. I didn't know you were there. Oh, did you? Yes. And then when I walked down the streets, there was a shooting in the middle of Aarhus, I could hear. So I came down to a small, narrow street called Clemens Street. And it was full of people, crowded of people, said, they're shooting, you should not go out. It was a narrow street. And I went up there was another narrow street that you could look up to the cathedral. I went out there was crowded too. And there were 2 people from the resistance movement sitting with their machine gun pointing up at the church tower. So I say, what's going on? Yeah, we think there are some Germans up there shooting. So, okay, I went up to the other end. They were sitting there too, pointing up. And that was a rather shocking thing happening in the morning, because at 8 o'clock the war was over in the morning. But then suddenly a German patrol is coming armed with helmets, hand grenades and arms, are coming, walking over the little marketplace, up the big marketplace, facing the cathedral, and about to turn up to go up the main street.
Right.
And we should have let them pass, because they were on the way to a hotel where the German commander was. And he would have told them, put down your arms and then we must prepare to go home. But then there was a clever resistant movement man that has just joined the forces, and when he saw them, he went up, took his gun out and said, you are arrested, you're not allowed to be here, you should have put down your arms at 8 o'clock and so on. But the German, he didn't obey, he just continued to walk with his people. And then he shot, I don't know, he didn't shoot directly, but he shot a few shots to stop them.
Right.
They continued, and the Danes tried to get out of the way because there was some shooting. There were hundreds of people there with flags and everything. But the Germans disappeared. But the people of the resistance movement down here where my brother had the interrogation center, and in other places, they were distressed. There was something going on here and shooting. And they went down behind a wall with the theater, and they looked over there where they heard the shots, and they think they saw somebody, and they started to shoot. And in the square, you cannot find out where are they shooting from, because the echoes, boop, 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 boop. And then there was a shooting from many sides. They thought the enemy was there. The Germans had disappeared long ago, and 18 people were shot in the morning.
This is just after liberation.
Yeah. Just because this fool, he could have said, well, I'll accompany you up to the command or something, but then not start shooting. So this was a shock in the morning. But I had a good time there, meeting the English, and also inviting Mr. Watson from the Royal Dragoons home for the dinner a few times and so on, and visiting him in the old German barracks in the wood. So it was a summer of festivitas and so on, but it was fast forgotten, and then take on your normal daily clothes and start the new period of peace. And I think, for my part, that it is fantastic that we've had peace now in all these years in Europe.
Yeah. I think I'm right in saying, Mogens, that the Danish resistance movement elected not to put any individual name at the Val Yashem in Jerusalem, and that the entire Danish resistance movement is honoured as one group there.
Yeah, I know, I have been there myself, yes.
Well, Mogens, thank you for doing this interview, and thank you for everything you did.
It was what I could do at that time.
Mogens Skjolt, it's been a pleasure and an honour. Thank you very much.
Hope you have a good time home.
Sure I will.
And you can try to do something. Make a seminar in Britain
You'll have to come across with the accordion.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you, Mogens.
Okay.